Hello and welcome to Sideways. This week we're working out how to make decisions more easily and effectively. We look into what prevents us from being decisive and the strategies to employ in order to get things moving. We discover that there's money to be made from scaring birds, especially those with a drug habit. Martin dresses up as a Cavalier, not the Vauxhall car type, and we both think wistfully of paddling pools. How to make decisions.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you? You okay?
Bit warm.
It is a bit warm, but I'm enjoying this warm spell we're having. I know you're not a big fan.
It's humid. It's humid. Although I'm better off than a bloke I was watching about 5 minutes ago who's walking down the road and obviously stepped in some dog poo.
That doesn't happen so often these days. People are a bit more vigilant about picking up their dog's waste, aren't they?
And quite rightly so. It's a disgrace if you don't pick up after your dog. You shouldn't have a dog.
It's unforgivable, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Unless they're out in the middle of some field. That's fair enough.
Yes.
I don't mean a park, by the way.
No, quite. No. That's just as bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I find it very distasteful when people pick it up, put it in a bag, then hang the bag on a tree.
That's disgrace. I mean, that's worse than not picking it up.
Yeah, I think it is. It just sits there and festers in a plastic bag, doesn't it?
If you're listening to this and you're one of those people that do that,
don't
stop it.
Yeah, straight away.
Disgusting, and you should be ashamed of yourself and have a bit more self-respect.
Exactly.
That's told our listeners.
It has, yeah, firmly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can step down off of that little soapbox now. Then we can crack on.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh well, this week's episode is based on an idea from our list that you only appended quite recently. It was initially I got a bit confused because the one there was another idea underneath about inspiration.
Oh yeah,
and there was a quote about inspiration. I thought that was the inspiration for about being indecisive, which is what we're talking about today. So I got a bit confused at first, but I sorted that one out.
Well, that's good. I'm pleased we're doing how to be decisive or being indecisive because I've got a lot to say on this matter.
Have you? Good. But I do apologise because I forgot to tell you, didn't I, before about 20 minutes ago, what this week's episode was all about.
You did, yeah. But then you're making a bit of a habit of that recently.
Well, and I did my notes a day early this week.
Have we done an episode on pathetic excuses?
I think we've done one on excuses.
We must have done, mustn't we?
Yeah, we have.
Because you people with addiction issues are quite good with excuses, aren't you?
We sort of we rely on them heavily.
Yeah.
The thing about that is, and it's something we discussed only yesterday in the meeting, is that we think we're good at them. We clearly aren't. People see right through us straight away, but we think we've been really clever. So yes, before we start, that was a little bit of a before we start, but another before we start. There was, you've probably heard about the chip shop in Whitby who'd hired a lad to dress up as an eagle to run up and down outside.
Why would I have heard of
well,
that?
I've got a feeling it got on the news at one time.
Hang on, wait. Back up.
I am waiting. Go on.
A chip shop in Whitby.
Yes.
Who got someone to dress up as an eagle.
Yes.
And run up and down. Well, what's that got to do with a chip shop?
It scares off the seagulls because Whitby, obviously being a coastal resort,
right.
It's a lot of seagulls, and they had a lot of problems.
Right.
With people having their chips nicked as they're walking along the road, which has happened to me on one occasion. I remember.
When did it happen to you?
Well, in fact, it's happened to someone I was with.
Oh.
We were down in Hastings, and she had a Cornish pasty whipped out of her hand, which was quite. The irony of that was that it sort of started to disintegrate as the seagull flew off, and bits of it fell all over someone's car. So it was a double whammy, that one.
That's very good. I can remember my sister's dog, one of my sister's dogs, took an apple out of someone's hand walking past him in the park. But the best one was when my brother went on a school trip, which would have been many, many decades ago now. His friend, Brian King, I still remember his name, they were on day one of their week-long holiday, and he was standing on a wall counting his money, and a donkey came up, took it out of his hand, and ate it.
When animals interact with the human race, it's always funny, isn't it?
Anyway, back to your chip shop in Whitby.
Yeah. No, I was just talking because that lad, they were paying him he was getting in 200 quid a day for doing that, apparently, which is quite a touch, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, mind you, that'd be quite uncomfortable in the current climate.
Yeah, it would be. But I was thinking, because it led on to another story, that perhaps this lad needs to be employed further afield, because there's reports that seagulls in some areas are swooping down, taking people's joints as they're rolling them up. Okay.
Really?
Yeah, apparently it's happened quite regularly, which is why it became a news item. And they particularly like spice, apparently. Now,
do they?
Yeah, I mean, spice has been illegal in the UK because it used to be sold in those head shops, didn't it?
We used to have one, didn't we, down Union Street?
Since 2016. Well, there was one down Union Street, but there's another one placed really irresponsibly by... Well, I suppose the shop owners thought it was a great place, but they put it directly next to the recovery hub in Maidstone in Mill Street.
I remember that.
Yeah. I mean, there was uproar at the time. We think, my God, there's people struggling. They could come straight out of the recovery hub, doing a bit of work on themselves. Straight next door, there was a head shop selling all this gear, which was really strong stuff. And spice, as we know, has become a real curse in society. So it's still readily available, but it's just not sold
so seagulls
on the high street.
Seagulls like it.
Apparently, yeah, it turns them quite crazy, and they do dive bomb people after they've had a bit of spice.
I suppose they do.
Yeah, but they end up sort of collapsing and dying as well. So it's a last big hurrah as far as they're concerned.
Right, sort of a very sort of rock star, isn't it? A bit sort of John Bonham.
It is, yeah.
The John Bonham version of seagull behaviour. So I suppose after nicking someone's joint or having some spice. Yeah. You're definitely in trouble with your chips, aren't you? You might even lose your Savoy at that point.
Well, exactly. Now they've got the taste for all sorts of things. Yeah. It's crazy what they can do. So I think that lad could hire a team of eagles, couldn't he, to run up and down outside chip shops quite easily.
They would be called the illegal eagles, wouldn't they?
Oh, hey.
Have you ever dressed up as an eagle?
I'm just trying to think. No. Have you?
Hang on. No, I don't think I have. Have you ever dressed up as any sort of bird?
A bird? No, I don't think I have, no.
Ooh. Have you ever dressed up as anything? Not
really. A Cavalier on one occasion, yeah. Yeah.
When did you dress up as a Cavalier?
Just to go to a fancy dress party, yeah. It was an easy choice, really, because my brother was in the Sealed Knot, which was a Civil War reenactment society, so he had all the kit. So, yes, I popped that on and went along. Yeah.
I can see you as a Cavalier. It's funny.
Yeah. I burnt a hole in the tunic, so I got in trouble there. Someone put a fag burn in it. So, I didn't tell him that at the time. You found out later.
The only thing I can ever remember dressing up as was a cracker. Yeah, it was a fancy dress party when I was a child, and there was a competition. I didn't win. I was quite miffed about it. I thought I was bound to win, isn't it? A cracker.
I suppose so. Did you get people inevitably coming up to say, "No, I want to pull you," and that?
No, I was young. I was too young.
Too young to understand.
Probably about 7.
The concept.
Probably about 7. I don't think that sort of behaviour goes on. Well, it probably does now. Probably does these days.
Anyway, before we drift off into quite dangerous areas, we'll go back to the subject matter, shall we? What I wanted to look at was what causes indecisiveness and the methods you can help you become more decisive. Okay. So I've got a few pointers down here, but as you said at the top here, that you probably got quite a good input in it, and it was your idea. So I assumed you'd have some reasonable points to make. So what causes indecisiveness? These are the points I came up with, and feel free to either diss them or
I'm sure I won't diss them. Well, not in public anyway.
Yeah, the first one was our old friend fear of failure.
Yeah.
Which we know stops people going into recovery for sure. But when I was doing the research on that, they were saying that it can often come from learned behaviour in childhood. And I know that's probably your speciality there. Would you say that's correct?
Well, yeah. I mean, what you mean, fear of failure?
Yeah.
Yeah, because as you're growing up, you're learning a lot about how failure is treated aren't you, in your family? So if you're encouraged to try things and there are no negative consequences if they don't work out for you, you're much more likely to be happy to do things and fail at them. Whereas if you got told off for not doing well enough, or if, you grew up in one of those households where you got 9 out of 10 for a spelling test and your parents said, well, what happened to the other one? Why didn't you get the 10th one right? It's like so much of that stuff becomes ingrained and stays with us. So I think, if you grew up in an environment where failure was encouraged in a positive manner as a kind of form of learning, you're much more likely to be tolerant of it in yourself as an adult.
You're absolutely right. I can relate to what you've said there. But that fear can perpetuate the tendency to default to the relative safety of indecision, can't it? We know that going back to indecision is, although it's destructive, it's familiar.
Yeah. I suppose the other thing about failure in childhood, the opposite is true as well. If everything was fine and there was never any standard set, you might also be afraid of failure, because we need to have some sort of sense of boundary. We need to have some idea of the importance of pushing ourselves and trying to do well. So I think that too can probably make us fearful of failure and therefore indecisive. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it was a good point. It was the first one on the list, and perfectionism was the second one that came up, which we've talked all about, and we've done an episode on perfectionism. When someone constantly sees their options as polarized, really, and categorized as right or wrong, it's difficult because you can, and I've suffered from that in the past. You get paralyzed at the thought of accidentally making the wrong decision.
Yep. In a way, it's the same as a fear of failure, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're a perfectionist, it's like you won't accept anything less than your idealized view of the outcome.
Yeah.
And it's completely unrealistic.
Yes. Again, that's something I can relate to. And the next point I can relate to as well, I did do, and I first went into recovery because it's something they warned us about, which was people pleasing.
Yeah.
When you constantly worry about what others think, and you then struggle, don't you, between sort of choice A, what you want, and choice B, what other people want.
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. I'm not sure that necessarily will always stop you making decisions, but it'll cause you to make incorrect ones. You'll be thinking all the time about what does the other person want me to do, rather than what do I want to do. So in that sense, that is affecting your decision making.
It is, but again, I think you can retreat just to not making a decision, which is problematic, and lack of confidence.
Lack of confidence in yourself generally will stop you from making decisions, because you will underestimate your ability to cope with whatever the outcome is.
Yeah, and
you also probably won't trust your instincts sufficiently. I think we were talking last week about how, in those sorts of circumstances, it's easier to defer to other people, or to check your decision with other people. Well, if there's no one around and you don't trust your own instinct, then you're not going to do anything, are you?
No.
Because that little voice inside you that says, oh, let's do this, you'll be like, no, I don't trust you. So that whole, lack of confidence generally certainly will stop you making a decision, because you'll be fearful that your instinct is wrong and you won't be able to cope with the outcome.
Yeah, he's right. And I think living on your own makes that quite a relevant point. It's very easy to be indecisive when living on your own. When there isn't anyone else saying this is, or giving advice, you can get into this circle of indecisiveness if you're not careful.
Yeah, I think there's also something else probably relevant to recovery, which is, even if you don't live alone, recovery is a kind of, in some senses, a lonely path, isn't it? You've got to be making your own decisions. You've got to do things that are right for you. Sometimes those choices that you make might feel difficult or awkward, but you do, in order to sustain a long-term recovery, you have to build faith in yourself, don't you?
Yeah, you do. Oh, totally. And I think that leads on to the next point, which is lacking proper knowledge of the subject. That can make us indecisive, and that is so true of recovery, because it's an absolute hidden world. So making the decision to go into that is quite tough. And so which is why people walk past the recovery hub door time and time again before they go in. I know I did.
Yeah, I think that's a really important one actually, because not only in recovery, but if you consider all the situations in which we will tell ourselves, no, I won't make a decision yet because I don't feel as if I've got enough information. Now, obviously, sometimes that's a sensible decision, but often you can be using that as an excuse to not move.
Yes.
You know, I'll wait until this happens, or I'll wait until that happens, or recovery is a classic because, you know, sometimes people will say, when I feel a bit better, I'll stop drinking. Well, no, you've got to stop drinking in order to feel better. And so you are deferring that decision on the basis of more information or change that isn't going to come about. So you're kidding yourself.
Yeah, you are. And that does come up quite a lot, where people will say, I will go into recovery. I've got a lot on this year. I've got a holiday, and I've got a birthday party I've got to go to, and I've got Christmas, and so on and so forth. We'll always find a reason not to go into recovery.
Exactly that. Yeah, you'll never be in a place in your life where none of those things exist.
No, you won't. I think, again, it's a waiting for all the stars to align just doesn't work.
Correct.
And going into recovery, it's got to be done at it's got to be done at the right moment for sure. But there's rarely a wrong time to do it. I think that's probably the best way of summing that up. And it can be sometimes this indecisiveness can be a symptom of other mental health conditions. It suggests
depression will do that, anxiety will do that, stress will do that.
Yeah.
You know, probably most things that are creating instability in you emotionally are going to make decisions more difficult for you, because it will hamper your belief in yourself and your ability to see a way forward clearly.
Yeah, I think anxiety came up a lot when I was reading through various bits, because that can be quite paralyzing, can't it?
Yeah, anxiety. The problem with anxiety is that we focus on the thing that we fear not happening. You know, I don't want this to happen. This mustn't happen. Yeah. Rather than considering our proven ability to deal with lots of difficult situations.
Yes.
You know, so for instance, if you're in recovery and you experience anxiety, as I'm sure a lot of people do in recovery, that's an example of a situation in which we'll think back to what you've come through. Think back to all that you've overcome to get here. If you doubt your ability to find your way through difficult situations, you've only got to look at that step you made from active addiction into recovery, because you probably won't meet a bigger challenge than that in your life.
No, you're right. It sort of reminds me of that quote. I think we've used it before about that says, you know, so far we've overcome 100% of our bad days, because we can overcome stuff, and we do. So yeah, unless there's any other matters you wanted to look at there, I want to look at methods of how you can become more decisive.
One of the other things that makes decisions difficult is that we worry about what we don't choose. You know, so it's not always the thing that we're moving towards that we worry about. We think about, well, what about the choice I'm not making?
Okay. Yeah.
That can make things difficult for us.
Yes.
So, you know, and that can be with something very mundane, like choosing between, I don't know, this salad dressing and that one. Or it can be something, you know, really quite significant. I don't know, if you're choosing between whether to stay in a relationship or not stay in a relationship or something, you know, we worry about, well, what happens if I make the wrong choice? And I don't know how that would have played out. I think that's something that really paralyzes us. Yeah. And it comes back to what I was saying before, which is, even when you're in that situation, the thing you have to focus on is, well, you're never going to know how the other thing would have played out. So focus on your ability to thrive in whatever the consequence is with the choice that you have made.
Yeah, I suppose, again, a reasonably good example of that would be when you're invited to go somewhere and you're not feeling well on the day, you're not really feeling up to it, and you'd sit at home, and then you're fearful of a bit of FOMO, if you like. You're fearing what you're missing out on. Mm-hmm. And I think we've all been in that position before.
Yeah, and of course you don't want that feeling. You don't want to sit and think, oh, I wish I'd done this, or I wish I'd done that.
Yeah. Which
is one of the things that might stop you making a decision in the first place.
Yes, it will. And we'll come on to how to deal with that in a mo. So when you're looking at methods to help you become more decisive, again, I've got a few little pointers here. The first one was, try not to allow others to be the decider between you and your goals. Nobody can give you the correct answer on what's best for you besides yourself.
Yeah.
That's fair enough, isn't it? I mean, it's nice to ask other people's opinions sometimes, isn't it?
You can ask other people's opinions, but don't use them as the final arbiter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure, if someone gives you some information, you think, oh, I actually hadn't considered that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Fine. But if you're always deferring to other people, don't expect that you'll ever get any better at making decisions, because the only way you're going to get better at making decisions is to make them.
Yeah. Which leads on to the next point, and it goes back to our old friend who we talked about earlier on fear of failure. Is try not to worry about mistakes. They're part of life. Once you accept that things are not always in your control, making decisions will be much less threatening. Once you filter out those things that are not in your control, then it slims the field down somewhat. But then it gets to the point where the things that are in your control, you've got to make decisions about, but it's much less cluttered at that point.
Yeah, I suppose when you're thinking about things that are within your control, it's worth considering that virtually nothing is.
Yes, true.
I mean, that's the truth.
Yeah.
You might be in control of this decision, whatever it is, but what happens next, you aren't in control of that. And so one of the things that paralyzes us, I think, is sometimes actually believing we have more control over what the future holds than we really do.
Yeah.
Make a choice about something and the rest is in the lap of the gods. And that's why I say you have to trust your ability to deal with whatever comes, because you don't know what's coming around the corner. You've got absolutely no idea. And you just have to accept and trust your ability to deal with it.
Yeah, again, that was something that came up in groups fairly recently. And we were talking about when there's an impending argument. You can sort of go over things in your own mind, can't you, as to what the potential outcomes, and it can branch off into all different sorts of scenarios. And we were talking about the old saying that says you can only really practice the first line of an impending argument, because after that you don't know what's going to happen. It's all bets are off, aren't they?
Yeah, and actually, if you kind of play something to the nth degree in your head, you talk yourself out of having that conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very, very rare that something will go exactly the way that we imagine it's going to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, how many times we feared bringing a subject up with someone because you think it's going to cause real angst, and it just doesn't. It goes very smoothly.
Or it's much worse than you imagined.
Or it's much worse than you imagined.
And actually, that's the one you need to focus on, because when we're in that situation, we tell ourselves, oh, it probably won't be as bad as we think.
Yeah.
Okay, it probably, may not be. But if you consider the alternative possibility, which is this might be much worse than I'd even considered, if you can face that, and if you think, well, I'll find a way through it, we'll find a way through it, then you're going to be much less fearful of making decisions. Yeah,
true. Which again leads on to the next point, that if it feels right, voice your thoughts out loud to a friend or partner. Decisions can become less confusing and worrisome when we voice our fears and choices out loud. So again, it's just getting the angst out of the head, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, if you just leave yourself in the echo chamber of your own thoughts,
yes,
then decisions do become more difficult, particularly if it's something you're agonizing over. So you're right. If you are worried about something or agonizing over a decision, share it with someone. Don't give the decision to someone else to make.
No, that's the point, isn't it? Yeah.
But share it, because when you share it with someone, you relieve some of the pressure from it. And at least you'll have another perspective.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And I think just voicing it starts to, you've probably done the same. You start to voice something, and suddenly you make the decision is easy for you, even before you get a comeback from someone else. After you've voiced it, sometimes it clarifies it.
Yeah.
So it can help you then to become more decisive about where you want to go.
So some of us do find making decisions easier than others.
Yeah, quite.
I don't know. There are all sorts of reasons for that. I think it's like you can kind of come to find a peace with the sort of decision maker you are. If you do find it difficult to make decisions, I've noticed that people often then become very critical and frustrated with themselves. Oh, I can't make any decisions about anything. That's not going to make anything any better. It's just going to make it harder. Much better to say to yourself, sometimes I do find decisions quite difficult to make, or, even quite straightforward ones I find quite difficult to make. Just try and be a little bit gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
Because you'll find it's much easier to find a way through if you're like that than if you are constantly beating yourself up.
If you do get stuck, draft a simple pros and cons list. The important thing is to remember here is to write it down, because mentally weighing up pros and cons can sometimes add to the indecisiveness. So again, it's a bit like talking out loud. It takes the angst out of the head and into a different space.
I think that's okay. I think that's a good strategy for some things. I think there's a risk with it, which is that if you do that in some situations, sometimes there's a prone to overthink it.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
I'll tell you, this sounds like a really sort of terrible decision-making strategy, but sometimes it works. Flip a coin.
Yeah.
And the reason I say flip a coin, because if you're trying to choose between two things and you think, right, heads is decision A and tails is decision B, and you flip it and it comes down, if you suddenly feel in your gut, oh, that's disappointing, you know what the decision is.
It's strange because that did come up in the research and I couldn't square it with myself, but now you've explained it. So I didn't actually write that down because I thought, no, that doesn't sound, there's no science to that at all, but it sounds like there are.
It absolutely works. Try it with something really mundane. If you're sort of trying to decide what to have for dinner, and you think, oh, I don't know whether I want this or I want that, assign each of those two meals to the two sides of a coin, flip it, and you'll see what it does. It definitely works in some. I mean, probably best not to do it if you're thinking about, shall I get married or not? I'm not sure that's necessarily the best thing to do. Or
no. You'll have one of those fortune balls, those 8 balls where you shake it and an answer comes up for you.
Exactly.
Which some people live by. Well, I suppose if it helps you make decisions, I suppose it's all right, but it'll help you make the wrong ones quite a lot of the time as well, I'd imagine. Yeah,
the problem with those sorts of decision-making tools they are an abdication of responsibility.
They are, aren't
they? If you have something that give you all manner of different permutation, and you're deferring, you're giving control of yourself to something else.
Yeah.
Whereas flipping a coin, you're just saying, I've got a choice of A or B, and I'm going to see what my instinct says when it comes down. It's, as I say, it doesn't work for everything, but it certainly works sometimes.
So what are your thoughts? It's something that's came to mind here. What are your thoughts about someone who goes to a psychic to get answers about making a decision?
Well, I mean, I would never, people have their own processes for making decisions, and I suppose if it works for you, it works for you. But I think the downside of something like that is it does feel as if you are deferring your responsibility. You're abdicating responsibility and saying, well, I'm going to get someone else to choose for me. That's nothing. I'm not making any comment about the validity of mediums.
No, quite. That's why I was quite careful the way I worded that, because
I mean, whether it's valid or not, you're either getting someone from beyond the grave to make a choice for you, in which case you need to have a look at your life.
Yeah.
Or you're asking some random stranger who's taking your money and telling you that someone's talking to you from beyond the grave to make a decision for you, which isn't very sensible either.
No.
At some point, you've got to take control of your own life and make your own decisions, haven't you? Rather than get great Uncle Will to do it from, beyond the grave.
The next point was avoid questioning your final decision. I think we've all done that, haven't we? You think, right, that's it, I'm definitely going to do that. And then you change your mind at the last moment. You've got to, I think avoiding second guessing yourself does help, doesn't it? Once you made the decision, crack on with it.
Well, I think that comes back to the point about getting comfortable with the sort of decision maker you are.
Yeah.
Some people do make decisions on instinct. I think I'm like that. It might take me a long time to make a decision, but once I'm behind it, I am behind it and I'm going ahead. So I'm kind of unlikely to change my mind at the last minute. But that's just me. That doesn't make me, better or worse. It's just different from the way other people are. If you're someone who makes a decision and then, at the last minute, something changes your mind, that's okay as long as you're all right with it. But what you can't afford to do is to kind of constantly beat yourself up for the process that you use. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, you need to change something. I've got a few other things I want to add.
Thank you. I was hoping you would have.
Right.
Yes.
A few years ago, I can't remember why I did it, but I put together this kind of list of questions to ask yourself when you're trying to make decisions.
Okay.
So I'm going to whip through a few of them.
Excellent.
Right. The first one is related to the theory that I like this theory. I'm sure some people will disagree with it, but I like it. The decisions you make in your life are only coming from two possible strategies: a decision to get away from pain or towards pleasure.
Okay.
I don't think there's a third one, or if there is, someone tell me what it is. And I think any decision that you say you were going to make, I reckon we would be able to say, well, that's you're trying to get away from something uncomfortable or towards something pleasurable. I suppose sometimes you might be doing the two of them. So I think the first thing to think about is, what is your preferred strategy? Is it to get away from pain or to get towards pleasure? Because in some situations, a desire to get away from pain will not really help you make decisions in the same way as a decision to get you towards something pleasurable. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you don't like your job and you want a change of career. If you only ever think about getting away from the drudgery of your job, you will not find it very easy to think about getting out and what you're going to do next. Whereas if you focus instead on getting towards the pleasure of doing something you enjoy, more possibilities will open up to you. So my point is, if you're finding it difficult to make a decision, work out what your strategy is here. Are you trying to get away from something uncomfortable or towards something pleasurable? And if it's not working for you, try the opposite one. The second one is about congruence. Does the decision that you're making feel congruent to the rest of your life? An example of this would be, let's say you've got a young family and, who require a lot of your attention and time. A decision to take up a very time-consuming hobby might feel good to a part of you, but it is not congruent with your life.
Right. Okay.
So I don't know. Let's say you want to learn to sail, or you're going to take up golf or something. It's going to take you away for great chunks of time. As an individual, that might make sense for you as a decision, but in the context of your life, it probably doesn't. So that might be a fairly trite example, but the point is, when you're making decisions, don't just think about what is right for you, because that might create confusion. You need to think about whether the decision you're making fits in your life more widely, right?
Yeah, no, that does make perfect sense. And it's because it comes across as selfish at that point as well. That if you're making a decision that isn't congruent with what the family as a whole need, it's just what you need. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it is. But you can also look at it the other way around and use the example of recovery.
Okay.
If you're in recovery and you're early in recovery, and I know this one will resonate with you because you've spoken about it often, your decision about whether to get into a new relationship or not, you need to think about that in the context of your entire life, not just, I feel attracted to this person, I think this might be a good thing to do, particularly if that person's in recovery too.
Quite, yeah.
A more congruent decision is, perhaps I need a little bit longer under my belt to create some stability. I'm not pretending that creating or making decisions that are congruent with your life is always easy, but it will be helpful if you think about the implication for your life as a whole rather than the specific little bit of your life that you're potentially affecting.
Good. Yeah, no, we have spoken about that a lot, and that does give a little bit more oomph to that particular point. Yeah. And the stance that I take on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Ask yourself if your decision is based on whether you want to do this or you feel as if you should.
Okay.
Because if your decision is based on, I should do this, who says? And this is a good way of flushing out something we were talking about earlier, which is, are you someone who tends to abdicate responsibility for yourself and let other people control stuff? Because decisions that you make that you feel you should sometimes are going to stick less well than the ones that you make that you want to.
Which again can come back into feeds into the people pleasing as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because if we're making a decision, I should do that because someone else wants me to.
And the final couple, ask yourself, what are the consequences of not making a decision?
Yeah, I'm just trying to work that one out. Yeah.
Right. So again, use recovery. So if you say to yourself, I'm going to defer that decision at the moment. I'm going to keep drinking. Don't feel I'm ready. I've got a lot of stuff coming up, right?
Yeah.
What are the consequences of making that decision? Think about yourself now in 6 months, in 12 months. You might not want to think about it. And in some respects, maybe that's a poor example. But remember that when you don't make a decision, the world doesn't stop. Things are going to keep going. So there will be a consequence, and it might not be negative, but there will be a consequence of you not choosing.
In the recovery circles, it could mean death.
Yeah, it could mean death, sure.
Yeah, which is the ultimate consequence.
Or it could mean, you lose your relationship or your job or you hit financial meltdown. I mean, I know that's a pretty serious example. But again, if you're trying to make any decision, there will be a consequence potentially of not making it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
For instance, that decision I mentioned to you, if you don't decide what you want to have for dinner, then you're going to be hungry, right? That's the consequence.
You're so indecisive, you have nothing at all.
Yeah. And then the final thing, which is something that I think a lot of us experience, this kind of feeling of a conflict in us. So one part of me wants to do this, one part of me wants to do that. People say that all the time. And so if you feel that sort of conflict, it's worth asking yourself specifically, what does each part of you want? There's a part of me that wants to, stay in this relationship. And there's a part of me that wants to get out of this relationship. You need to ask those separate parts what they're actually after. Because if you really drill down into it, they'll both ultimately want the same thing, for you to be happy, for you to be content, for you to be okay.
Yeah.
But you need to be really understanding why they think that particular course of action is going to lead to that consequence. Sometimes when people feel a conflict, they stop themselves. They think, I can't make the decision because I just don't know. Well, you need to do a little bit of work on it. You need to kind of listen to those disparate parts of you so that you can understand what they both want.
The last point I wanted to make really was that I came across a recognised medical condition called abulimania.
Don't know anything about it.
No, is when a person shows signs of pathological indecisiveness. I've never heard of that, have you?
No.
Never known anyone that suffered from that.
I don't think I've ever worked with anyone who had a pathological indecisiveness. They probably wouldn't have turned up, would they?
No, quite.
Wouldn't have been able to decide whether they wanted to come and see a therapist.
Well, you'd see them walking past your door, then walking off, then coming back, having a fag, walking off, coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that sort of wrapped up from my end. Did you want to go on to the gratitude lists?
Yeah, let's do that.
My one for this week is paddling pools. Okay. No, it's something I'd have been
you
very
bought yourself one?
No, well, I'd have been very grateful for one as a child, but I was very grateful for one this week, having met up with my daughter and my grandson.
Were you in it?
Well, I was able to sit at the edge with my feet dangling it. So in this heat, it was rather nice just to have some cool feet. The downside of that was
sit at the edge. You mean you were sitting on a chair outside the paddling?
Yeah.
With your feet in it. Was William splashing you?
Oh yeah, that was the downside of that setup. It wasn't just splashing; he'd get someone trying to absolutely soak you through.
Did you not have a paddling pool when you were a kid?
I did. Yeah, as I said, I was really grateful for it as a child. I loved them.
Yeah, it was great, wasn't it? When your mum and dad were getting the paddling pool out. I mean, that was a thrill.
Yeah, and it was good when I had my own children. It was good getting the paddling pool out for them.
Yeah.
And now it's come back it's come around the third time with my grandchildren.
That's lovely, that is. We had a water slide because the back garden was on a slight incline.
Yeah.
One of those sort of plastic sheeting water slide things. They were magnificent. You go down a hell of a lick.
Yeah, straight into the bushes.
Especially if you put on a bit of heft after a couple of ice creams.
That's it, yeah. You'd have gone whizzing down, mate, wouldn't you?
When I was a kid, I would have done, I'd have gone straight through the back wall.
Straight onto the railway line at the bottom, wouldn't you?
There's no need for that, was there?
No need at all, really. So I'll let you go on to your gratitude.
Right, on my gratitude list this week, this is gonna go over a lot of people's heads or leave a lot of people cold who are listening to this. But it's Test match special.
Test match special. Okay. Well,
so I love the cricket. Always love cricket. But listening to the cricket commentary on Radio 4, even if I'm sure this is the case. Even if you're not particularly interested in cricket or you don't really know a lot about cricket, it's such a lovely thing to listen to. It's synonymous with summer for me, having those kind of familiar voices in the background, with the doors open and you hear the birds singing, and I'm getting sweltering hot, obviously, because I don't like that.
I can understand that. It's almost meditative, because I think the pace of the game can be hit and miss, or the pace is always slow in test, which is what I love about Test cricket. I think because it's so slow, it's quite calm, interspersed with little bits of action and ecstasy when it goes the right way.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and they're fewer and further between as I get older. But just takes me straight back to my childhood.
Yeah.
I can remember, my dad listening to it, and I can almost kind of feel what it was like to be at home growing up. And, as I say, as those experiences become less and less frequent as you get older, they become even more precious.
So that's a good item to go on.
Thanks. I don't need your approval of my gratitude.
No, you
Thanks
don't.
very much.
I thought I'd proffer it anyway, regardless.
Happy Father's Day, by the way.
And happy Father's Day to you. Yes.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. That is the days of the year.
Oh,
straight in there, isn't it?
Oh, of course.
Father's Day, which is it's always rather nice, and it was one that used to bring me great sadness at one time when I was in the madness, and my contact with my children was sporadic. I wasn't spending enough time with them, but now it's all very good, and look forward to it. And I got my youngest daughter is on her way up from Surrey this morning, so
lovely.
We're going out for lunch, and that'd be great. And I saw Emily yesterday, my oldest.
Oh, that's nice.
It's all been
nice.
good.
Well, my son's gone to Thailand to avoid Father's Day.
Has he? He's got as far away as he possibly can.
Yeah. I thought that was a bit excessive. He could have just said he couldn't make it. He didn't have to go.
He was very decisive. No Father's Day for me.
Very decisive.
That didn't fit in with his overall family strategy, though. We were talking about earlier on.
No, he made a decision that was congruent with his own life, but not with mine.
Not with yours, yeah.
I'm not a big, to be honest, I don't really hold much store by Father's Day. It's a bit of a commercial nonsense.
It is. It is really. It's nice. It's nice excuse to that the kids can give you a card and some chocolate.
Yeah, but our children ought to be loving us every day anyway, aren't they?
They should, yeah, absolutely right.
Because we deserve it.
I don't know about that, but yes, exactly. The other days of the year, they were all fish related. There was, I know, bizarrely, International Sushi Day.
Lovely sushi.
Yeah, me too. National Go Fishing Day.
Nah,
not a bit of me.
I did. Did you ever go fishing? I don't remember you.
Yeah,
being a fisherman.
I have. Yeah, not as a child particularly. I've been fishing. Fishing was a good chance to go on a riverbank, drink loads of beer.
Talked about this, haven't we? Yeah,
and not catch anything.
Yeah, I went fishing for years, never caught a single fish.
No,
not once.
I think it's the I don't know. It just seems something cruel about dragging an animal out of their natural environment by a hook in their mouth. That doesn't sit neatly with me anyway.
No, I certainly wouldn't do it these days. But the only thing I can really remember with any fondness from my days fishing was the cucumber and Marmite sandwiches that my mum used to make for me.
I don't like the sound of those at all. But
magnificent. They go all soggy by the afternoon.
Oh no! And the last one was Clean Your Aquarium Day. So again, I don't know whether people need a special day to do that. It should be done on a regular basis, I'd have thought.
You'd have thought so. I haven't got an aquarium, so I won't be cleaning it.
Nor I, so that we can gloss over that one. Yep. On this day in music, 1987, Florida resident Victoria Holman sued Motley Crue for hearing loss incurred at a concert in December 85. Her and her daughter had front row seats less than 10 feet from the speaker. And she sued them for loss of hearing. And
don't you kind of know what you're getting into? I don't understand that. I mean, that's litigation gone mad, isn't it?
It is.
What do you expect?
Well, quite.
It's like going to see Motorhead and saying that's a bit loud.
It's like moving next to a railway line, isn't it? And complaining about the noise of the trains. You know what you're going to get. It's crazy.
Although I must admit, I wouldn't have wanted to be in the front row of a Motley Crue.
Not particularly, but we used to go to the Caroline Road shows. Used to deliberately go next to the speakers, didn't you? Do a bit of head.
Yeah, and then you couldn't hear for about the next 3 days.
You couldn't.
Your neck really hurt.
It did, yeah. And I remember going to a Motorhead gig. On several occasions, I went to see Motorhead. It always in school the next day.
Yeah.
That you couldn't hear what the teacher was saying. It was.
You didn't write to Lemmy threatening to sue him for loss of hearing then?
No, yeah. I think he'd give you short thrift, wouldn't he? Short shrift. What's the phrase?
Short shrift, yeah.
Yeah, he wouldn't be very happy with you, would he? He'd tell you where to go. But I think Motley Crue actually settled out of court on that one, which is quite bizarre.
Did they?
Yeah.
Did they?
It's someone's birthday today. It's Barry Manilow's birthday today.
Manilow, right, okay, yeah.
Okay. Do you know what year he was born? Or how old? We can work with how old he is today because that'll come to the same thing effectively.
Okay, I'm going to tell you the year he was born.
Okay.
Yeah. I think he was born in 1948.
43. He's 80 today.
Is he 80?
Yeah.
Wow. Didn't he once say he was more popular than Led Zeppelin?
I don't know. Did he?
Yeah, I think he did. I remember being furious at the time because I was a big Led Zeppelin fan. Yeah. But then actually, I suppose on reflection, he probably is more popular than Led
probably
Zeppelin.
sold more albums. That's what he was saying.
Yeah. He only recently came out, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, I think everyone knew him when he came out.
I didn't know. It came as a bit of a surprise to me. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he was a septuagenarian before he came out. Fair play to him.
Yeah, good on him. Yeah. No, he took his time, but then
he writes the songs, doesn't he?
Exactly. Yeah. I've never been a big fan of Barry. I can't.
To be honest, he writes some great songs. I've got no problem with Barry Manilow.
No.
Yeah, and if he's 80, I see. Next week at Glastonbury, Blondie are playing on Sunday afternoon.
They are playing, yeah.
Do you know how old Debbie Harry is?
She's in her 70s now, isn't she?
I think she's something like 78.
Yeah, I know. She's no spring chicken. She was quite advanced in age when she became popular.
Yeah.
She looked younger than she probably was. She doesn't now, particularly.
So it gives us a bit of hope, doesn't it?
It does. Well, you were talking before about my older brother, Russ. He played his first live gig at the age of 66. That's not bad, is it? That's me wrapped up, mate.
Good. That's enough then, isn't it, today?
More than enough. See you later.
Laters.
Bye.
Bye. Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work or sort through the extensive archive of past episodes, just visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram at Sideways Podcast, and you can email us if you have a question or if there's something you'd like us to cover. But most of all, we want to tell you how grateful we are that you come and listen, and we ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.